When you were a kid, did you ever feel it? Feeling of a monster lurking under your bed, the shapeless shadow hiding in the closet, the nameless dread that made you bolt up the stairs after shutting off the lights? Now here's what's strange. A child in Tokyo hides from the same invisible monster. A girl in Nairobi insists a demon lives in her attic. A boy in Lima sees a shadow in the dark. All of them, separated by oceans, languages, and centuries, share the same primal fear. But how? Is this just a coincidence? Or is there something deeper here? Two men, a psychiatrist, Carl Jung, who mapped the mind's darkest corners, and a mythologist, Joseph Campbell, who decoded humanity's oldest stories. Through their work, they figured these mysterious similarities are proof of a profound truth. We all share the same ancient mind. Let's dive in to understand how they connected the dots hidden in plain sight for millennia. In the 1920s, Carl Jung faced a mystery he couldn't ignore. His patients, wealthy Europeans who'd never left Switzerland, were describing dreams filled with symbols they'd never seen. Serpents swallowing their tails, wise old men in deserts, towers crumbling into seas. But here's where it gets interesting. These symbols weren't just random. They matched rituals from African tribes, carvings in Hindu temples, and myths from cultures his patients had never even heard of. But how? Jung became obsessed. He traveled the world, from New Mexico pueblos to Indian ashrams, collecting stories, and everywhere he went, he found the same patterns, the same characters with different skins. He called this phenomenon the collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the mind we all share. Think of it like psychic Wi-Fi, a network of instincts, memories, and symbols, hardwired into humanity, not learned, but inherited. And the most haunting part, these symbols, these archetypes, aren't just stories. They're alive in you. Take the shadow, the archetype of everything we repress, our darkest desires, our shame, our rage. Every culture has a name for it. The devil, the trickster, that part of you that doesn't want to obey. Jung believed the shadow isn't just a metaphor. It's a psychological reality. We battle it in myths like Beowulf versus Grendel. We project it onto villains in movies. We even see it in our own self-sabotage. But Jung's work was only half of the puzzle. Decades later, a man named Joseph Campbell would stumble onto something even bigger, a structure hidden in all mythological stories. So precise, it could predict the plot of every movie you've ever loved. Why did Luke Skywalker and the Buddha follow the exact same path? And what does that say about us? Campbell called it the hero's journey, a story so universal it appears in every corner of the globe. Gilgamesh battles Humbaba in Mesopotamia. The Buddha confronts suffering under the Bodhi tree. The hero twins of the Maya descend into the underworld. Even Luke Skywalker destroys the Death Star. The call to adventure, the refusal, the mentor, the abyss, the revelation, and the return. These aren't just plot points. They're stages of a psychological ritual, a blueprint for transformation of every human being. Campbell didn't invent the hero's journey. He uncovered it, buried in our myths, our religions, and in each of our life's journey. Let's start with the flood, a story so precise, it defies coincidence. In Mesopotamia, 4,500 years ago, Utnapishtim builds an ark to survive Enlil's wrath. 2 millennia later, in Genesis, Noah gathers animals of every species in his ark, making sure they survive the Great Flood. Same plot, same divine punishment. In India, Manu escapes a great flood with help from a talking fish. The Aztec believed the fourth world drowned, sparing only a man and woman atop a mountain. Separated by oceans and millennia, These cultures never met, yet they all describe a righteous survivor, a vessel of salvation, a reboot of humanity. Why? Because floods aren't just about water. They're a reflection of the collective memory, experienced repetitively on both individual and collective levels, understood through confrontations with moral collapse and psychological rebirth. Now, the dying and rising god. A story so old, it predates agriculture. Osiris is murdered, chopped into pieces, and reborn as Lord of the Dead. Jesus dies on a cross, resurrecting to promise eternal life. Inanna enters the underworld, dies, and is revived by her servant. Quetzalcoatl sacrifices himself to create the fifth sun. These aren't just resurrection tales. They're about hope in the face of despair. The message? What dies can live again. Whether it's crops, love, or your own fractured self. This archetype whispers, the seemingly end of the road is actually a stepping stone of a new beginning. And finally, the Trickster, the ultimate rule breaker. Loki burns down the god's hall, but his chaos allows a new world to rise. The serpent in Eden defies divine law to offer forbidden knowledge, exiling humanity from paradise, but awakening free will. Coyote tricks mortals into embracing imperfection, while Prometheus defies Zeus to steal fire for humanity, paying with eternal torment. The Trickster isn't just a troublemaker. He's the shadow Carl Jung warned us about. The part of ourselves that rebels against authority, hungers for forbidden truths, and terrifies us with its primal unpredictability. But why do all cultures need a trickster? Because without chaos, there's no growth. Without rebellion, there's no evolution. The serpent's lie in Eden, Loki's sabotage in Asgard, Coyote's pranks in the desert, they're not accidents. They're the universe's way of forcing us to confront our limits, to question, to adapt and evolve. It is the spark of revolution, the whispering voice in all of us that keeps provoking to break the rules. Let's pause. Because you might be thinking, okay, but isn't this just obvious? Of course, cultures share stories about floods. People live near rivers. Of course, heroes exists. Everyone loves underdogs. Of course, gods die and rise. Maybe these aren't archetypes. Maybe they're just common sense. But here's where Jung and Campbell's critics miss the point. It's not the themes that are identical. It's the details, the bizarre, illogical, poetic details that no practical human would invent twice. The odds of two cultures inventing flood myths with arcs, animals, and divine wrath? Plausible. But the odds of 12+ civilizations, from the Andes to the Arctic, inventing identical stories about twin heroes, serpent battles, and resurrecting gods? Astronomical. A clear indication of a common memory. Jung called it the collective unconscious. In Campbell's word, it is the monomyth. But strip away the jargon, and it's simple. We've been telling the same stories for 50,000 years, because we're all reading from the same psychic script. So, here's the truth most does not want to say out loud. You're not just you. You're the sum of every human who ever lived. When you daydream about adventure, you're channeling Odysseus. When you fear the dark, you're back in a cave, hearing lions roar. When you laugh at Loki's chaos, you're thanking the first Homo sapiens who dared to rebel. Jung and Campbell did not discover the collective unconscious. They just gave it a name. But you and me? We've felt it our whole life. In déjà vu, in childhood fears, in that weird shiver when a tune of a song, a story, a sunset feels older than us. This video is a tribute to our ancestors, who shaped us across continents and millennia. Their survival, their grief, their joy. Those who live quietly in our minds, in instincts we don't question, in fears we can't name, and in hopes that feel older than us, reflecting the fragments of a shared mind. Hit the subscribe button to continue this journey of self-exploration. In our next episode, we'll uncover how the keys to our fulfillment are hidden in our unconscious mind. We'll try to figure out how to decode its language, confront inherited patterns, reclaim the fragmented parts of ourselves, and understand the process of becoming who we've always been. Till then, take care.